Hello friends, this is Worm, and yesterday I asked the community to tell me what is killing / what has killed Destiny 2. And so I read through a ton of replies and I picked out some just kind of general answers that players feel have caused a decrease in Destiny 2's playability and is what is ultimately killing the game or has killed the game for them. So we're going to talk about each one of these and my thoughts on them. Starting off with the first one here. And that is the end of the Light and Darkness saga. The final shape dropped, we killed the witness, and for a lot of players, that was the end. And this is something that there's nothing really Bungie can do about this. I mean, it's a game that's been going on for 10 years. Players finally, they see the end of it. They see that, we killed the big bad, so to speak. They know how it ends. So what's the point of going on? Like, yes, we have episodes, and yeah, the episodes are really fun. Like, I really have enjoyed episode 1 so far and the storyline behind it and stuff. But really, I think most players are just fatigued by, just playing Destiny for 10 years. Finally, we get the answers, and it's like, okay, it's time to move on to other things. And this is not really something that is Bungie's fault. It's not really the player's fault. It's just general fatigue. There's not really an answer to this. Like, if you're somebody who you finished the final shape, you saw what happened to the witness, now you're done with Destiny, by all means, like, that's completely okay, and some of us, like myself, like, I'm gonna see it through all the episodes. Like, I'm very invested in Destiny. I want to see where it goes after that, but I think just general fatigue has finally kicked in. We saw the end of the biggest, baddest thing in the universe, and really the only thing Bungie could potentially do is give us another even bigger, even more bad enemy. But at the same time, I think that that's just gonna kind of lose its luster really fast. Oh, well, now there's something even worse than the witness. What could that be? Insert whatever Bungie has in mind. But at the same time, like, players have already finished. They've already made up their minds. They finished the main campaign, the whole, the Light and Darkness saga. They don't want to come back. And so that makes sense as something that is killing / has killed Destiny. Now, I don't, mind you, I don't think Destiny is necessarily dead right now. Okay, I'm just asking players what they think. But yeah, into the Light and Darkness saga / the final shape / killing the witness. That is like that was one of the most common answers. Now, the other most common answer that I got was the player base / the community of Destiny 2. And this is one that, to me, it feels really hit or miss, but I'm going to try to break down why I think that so many people said the community, okay? And there's several different factors of this. So when people say the community, a lot of people were referring to the fact that the community can never be pleased. Like, in Destiny 2, no matter what Bungie does, there's always going to be somebody that doesn't like it. We move from, seasons to episodes. There are players that don't like it. We move from, big expansion drops to smaller expansion drops. Players aren't going to like it. You nerf this weapon, players aren't going to like it. Players are going to love it. You buff this weapon, players aren't going to like it. Players aren't going to love it. Like, the community is never really like 100% on board with really anything that Bungie does. And this is gaming in general. Okay, all games face this. Call of Duty has things. They'll buff and nerf things, they'll change things. Players are gonna like it, players are not gonna like it. Like, it's not really something that's, in my opinion, it's gonna kill the game. This is something that players you're gonna find everywhere. However, there is a small portion of the player base that is very toxic. And I noticed this is really common in veteran players, Destiny 1 players, for example, like Destiny 1 vanilla players. Like, I'm a Destiny 1 vanilla player, and I run across other people, and other people talk about Destiny 1 vanilla, they're talking about, oh, the good old days and stuff like that. Then somebody will come in who says, hey, I started with playing it like Shadowkeep or something like that, or I started playing in Forsaken, whatever it is. And all of a sudden, like, the veteran players are now demonizing the newer players. And I've seen it even happen with people who start, at like Beyond Light. Like, Beyond Light players are talking, to Lightfall players like, oh, you haven't been playing for as long as I have. Like, it's just general, like, what's the word here? Seniority toxicity, I guess. Like, oh, well, I've been playing longer, so I know more than you, right? And you're going to encounter that. Now, of course, you're also going to encounter just generally, like, your average toxic players. Okay, like, I was playing Trials. I've been playing Trials a lot last weekend and this weekend, and I found a couple players who are they just talk smack in the in the text chat and stuff like that. That's going to happen in every game, though. That's not necessarily killing the game, by having these smack talkers. In terms of the community disagreeing on a lot of things that Bungie does, I don't think this is necessarily killing the game. You know, when Bungie nerfs something that everybody loves, like Divinity, for example, you know, Bungie nerfs Divinity, like everybody was mad about that, but I don't think that that's necessarily going to kill the game. Like I legit maybe saw 1 or 2 posts about how people were leaving Destiny 2 because Divinity has been nerfed. Like, you know, the community and the player base, like what we see on the front end is really toxic, especially with, you know, the video from a couple days ago, you know, with our Zim Cronus user that we were talking about. You know, lots of people very, very toxic about that, which again, if you're cheating in Destiny 2, like, you know, and you get roasted by the community, that was kind of on you. I mean, let's be honest, it was kind of on you, but you know, I think that the player base in the community is not necessarily killing Destiny 2. I think that more so what's killing Destiny 2 is the lack of entry for newer players. Like as somebody who's never played Destiny before, getting into Destiny 2 is very difficult. And I've talked to some players who are relatively new to Destiny 2, and they said they just don't have any idea what's going on. Players that started with the final shape, like, okay, they know that, you know, they have an idea that we're going to kill some big bad, but they weren't there for the past, you know, several years. There's not really a great introduction to, you know, build crafting, you know, and enemies and stuff like that. Like who are the Fallen? Who are the Cabal? Who are the Hive? You know, all this stuff, like that's not very well explained. Like back, you know, in the early days in Destiny 1, it was better explained because it was still new. Like, you know, we know the Fallen were scavengers that are chasing the Traveler. We know that the Hive are, you know, world eaters. They've been going around the universe just basically killing everything. The Cabal are, you know, an empire that just conquers for fun. Like we know about all this stuff, but if you're starting later on in Destiny 2, it's very difficult to enter the game knowing what's going on. Like, yeah, like it's not hard to get in and play, right? Like anybody can say that, like, yes, I can get on, I can, you know, create a Titan and I can just start having fun and stuff like that. But in terms of like all the lore, because Destiny is a very lore centric game, it's very difficult and there's a high barrier of entry. And that's one of the things that a lot of people are feeling, you know, really kill Destiny 2 is it's not new player friendly. And Bungie has addressed this before. Bungie has talked about how they want to make things easier and more comprehensive, I guess, for newer players, but we're still not really seeing that. You know, if you're starting in, for example, episode 2, we'll just use that, you know, episode 2, which is coming in a couple months from now. If you're starting in episode 2, like you have got a lot of catching up to do from past lore and stuff like that, and that's just really difficult for players to do. So that's, you know, that's another reason why Destiny is that's another thing that has been killing Destiny, I guess. Like it's that barrier to entry. But moving on to the next thing that you, as in you the viewer, y'all said was that Bungie's corporate decisions are killing Destiny. And this is one, it seems like this is a very hard to argue on, okay? Because of course, a couple months ago, Bungie faced a massive round of layoffs. They laid off either 8 or 12%, I can't remember exactly off the top of my head, but they laid off a bunch of people. Then of course, here just a couple weeks ago, we had another round of layoffs that fired even more people. Now Bungie's staffed like 850 people or something like that, when they started, you know, last year at around 1,300 or so. So Bungie has lost a lot of, you know, a lot of their people based on corporate decisions. And we, I can't remember, I think we talked about this in a video a couple months ago. I think that the corporate decisions that were made weren't necessarily bad decisions to be made at the times. Again, these are corporate decisions, not personal decisions. Not talking about Pete Parsons' car collection. I'm talking about personal, you know, corporate decisions, like the decision to hire more players, to branch out into more games. Like these weren't necessarily bad ideas. It was just, they weren't executed as well as they could have been. Like I don't blame Bungie for wanting to have a different IP. Like Destiny has been going on so long. I think Bungie anticipated that the end of the Light and Darkness saga was going to see a big drop off in players, and so they want to have another game like Marathon, for example, in the works and ready to go. And I don't fault them for that. Unfortunately, the corporate decisions that they've been making, you know, have led to a lot of people being laid off. And of course, as players, we sympathize more with the developers than we do with, you know, the head honchos and the corporate office at Bungie, right? So when you lay off developers, that's going to piss off a lot of people in the player base, right? And I mean, that's, to me, that's just kind of common sense. But at the same time, if you're at that corporate level, you know, and you're making those corporate decisions, you probably don't see it that way as well. You know, you can hear the player base complain about it and all that stuff, but you don't see it the same way because you're just in a totally different spot. But of course, when players see that Bungie is not taking really good care of their staff and they're laying people off like that, yeah, that's going to drive people away from Destiny 2. That's going to drive people just away from Bungie in general. They're going to say, hey, like, I sympathize with these workers that were laid off. That's not cool. I'm not playing Destiny anymore. I'm not giving any more of my money to the game. So yeah, I think that Bungie's corporate decisions are definitely a factor in why Destiny is, potentially being killed right now. And I don't think Destiny is dead. I want to say that again. I don't think Destiny is dead right now. I don't think it's necessarily dying, but I don't think that it has a lot of life left in it, I guess, which I think it's important to say that again. But yeah, Bungie's corporate decisions definitely have a hand in what's, why players are dropping off. Also, the hit and miss content. This was another thing that a lot of people brought up. Content is, we had things like the Witch Queen, which was phenomenal. Then we have Lightfall, which was butt cheeks. Then we had the Final Shape, which is phenomenal. And it seems like the game teeters, from expansion to expansion, season to season, from a good season to a bad season, good season, bad season, good expansion, bad expansion. And lots of people they're tired of that. They're tired of, is this year's expansion gonna be good? I'm hoping it is, but at the same time, maybe we're disappointed like we were with Lightfall, or maybe, we're surprised by, how good Final Shape was. Like, lots of players, they don't like that rocking back and forth between good and bad. And I don't blame people for that, because I don't really like rocking. I don't like teetering that either, especially when you get stuff like Witch Queen followed by Lightfall, followed by the Final Shape. Like that's a huge teeter totter to be on. Next year, who knows, is the future content going to be good? Is it going to be bad? This episode I think is pretty good. Is next episode going to be as good? I can only hope. But at the same time, a lot of players don't like that it's hit and miss. And a lot of players feel like it's almost like a waste of money. I got Witch Queen, which was so good. Then so I spent $100 to pre-order Lightfall. Then Lightfall was butt cheeks. Then, even me, I didn't pre-order the Final Shape at all. Bungie gave it to me as a gift, right? So that I could, talk about it and stuff. I was so let down by Lightfall. Now, mind you, this is coming from a hardcore player. I've been playing since Destiny 1. I make videos talking about Destiny 2 and the video game, and I didn't pre-order the Final Shape because I was so let down by Lightfall. And that's really saying something, And so I think that the hit and miss content definitely contributes to, what is killing / what has killed Destiny 2. But moving on from there, in terms of content, we're seeing a lot of recycled content, and a lot of players have expressed a lot of disdain for recycled content. We're constantly getting back weapons that we've had in the past. For example, just this episode, we've got back the Season of the Dawn weapons, things like Patron of Lost Causes and Breachlight, and here pretty soon we're going to be getting Martyr's Retribution back. Lots of people don't like that Bungie is going this route of just dishing out stuff that we've already had before. And recycled content as opposed to new content is not a good thing. I'm okay with bringing in some recycled content as long as you're bringing in a fair amount of new stuff. For example, this episode, we've got a bunch of new weapons that are coming in, and we've got some returning old weapons. I think that Bungie's doing just fine with that. But when you have an equal amount of recycled content being brought back as you do with new content, that's when the game starts to feel stale. That's when it starts to be okay, why are we getting the same stuff? Why have we got, King's Fall back? Don't get me wrong, I love King's Fall, but why are we getting King's Fall instead of something brand new? And I think, again, this one kind of ties back into corporate decisions made by Bungie. I think that Bungie doesn't have the manpower to make as much new content as they want, especially because they're trying to push out some other games like Marathon and any other projects they may have in the works and stuff like that. So again, I'm not trying to fault Bungie for wanting to do those other games, but really they need to be prioritizing Destiny 2. That's what they have built their name on. And I know some people are going to say, oh no, they built it on Halo. They started building it on Halo, but Destiny 2 has been, is a much larger game than Halo ever was. Okay, that's looking at just, plain numbers. And of course, maybe Bungie is going to do with Destiny 2 what they did to Halo, which is, they're going to let it down easy, and then they're going to drop support. They're going to move on, say, Marathon or some other game in the future. And that's likely to happen. And, it's going to suck for us Destiny lovers, just like for Halo players. It sucked for Halo players, but at the same time, it's just kind of the circle of video game life. But in terms of the recycled content, I understand Bungie trying to bring us stuff But at the same time, like when you're bringing so much old stuff that we've already had in the game before that you took away for whatever reason, like it's still just a very, very frustrating, very, you know, annoying thing for players to deal with. And so, yeah, I agree that this one is potentially harming Destiny more than it is actually helping Destiny. Now, there is a good side to this though. Recycled content does spark nostalgia. Okay, Martyr's Retribution coming back, that sparks nostalgia. You know, I would imagine that next season or the season after next season, we're probably going to be getting Black Armory weapons back. Again, that's going to spark nostalgia. That's going to bring players back in. So again, I'm not necessarily against recycled content, but when it comes to recycled content, we need to have more new content than we do recycled content. But yeah, let's talk about the next one. The next one here is a lot of people were saying is that, you know, is something that has killed Destiny. Is Bungie trying to cater to streamers or Bungie trying to cater to the casuals? Okay, and I hear a mixture of these two. You know, I hear what I would consider probably more casual players saying they listen to the streamers, and then I would hear, you know, people that are, you know, more of those hardcore players saying, oh, they listen too much to the casuals. Guys, the number of arguments I hear between these really balance it out. I don't think that catering to the casuals or catering to the streamers, blah, 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 is a good or a bad thing. First of all, I want to talk about catering to the streamers. So I think more people would probably say that Bungie like caters to streamers. I don't think Bungie necessarily caters to streamers. I'm gonna let y'all in on a little secret, okay? Streamers, they analyze what is going to be potentially nerfed. Like people like Salted Greppo, they look at what's potentially going to be nerfed, then they talk about it, then they get a score of credits for being the one who did that. Like Salted Greppo is famous because yes, like he does have world's first raid tiles, but he's famous because of his hot opinions that players don't like. Like that brings traffic to his channel. Okay, it would be me saying, let's hear what's the most OP weapon in the game right now. Let's say conditional finality. Like, oh, conditional finality needs to be nerfed. And then next week Bungie nerfs it, you know, or coming up in the, you know, in the mid-season patch or next episode, Bungie nerfs it. Like then everybody, oh, like how could you say that? Like Bungie only listens to you. No, like these streamers that tell people that, oh, this or that needs to be nerfed, they don't actually like necessarily believe that. They're just looking at the data, and that's how they are trying to build their following. That's how they're trying to get followers. So I don't necessarily think that Bungie listens or caters to streamers. In fact, I think historically Bungie has been trying to cater more towards casual players, and this is actually going to lead us kind of into the next argument here, which I'm going to talk about with, you know, catering to one side or the other. But, you know, Bungie has, I hate to say this, but Bungie has had a general lack of challenge for, you know, Destiny 2 as of the past couple of years. And yeah, like Nightfalls, like Grandmaster Nightfalls, like they're tough, but in terms of like compared to like Destiny 1 or early Destiny 2 tough, they're nowhere near comparable. Like I remember back in Destiny 1, like doing a Nightfall, like, and there was one difficulty of Nightfall. You didn't have, you know, this base level and all the way up to Grandmaster. You had one Nightfall and it was so hard. Like you would literally spend like an hour or two going through this strike, you know, picking off bosses, picking off ads, all this stuff. Like they were incredibly difficult. And as time has gone on, Grandmaster Nightfalls, like people are now speed running them, you know, trying to get those sub 10-minute clears and stuff like that, how to optimize and get it done quickly. And back in Destiny 1, early Destiny 2, we didn't really have that. And granted, a lot of that is due to the fact that we now have build crafting. We can, you know, build into, you know, strengthening our loadouts or our survivability and stuff like that. But general lack of a challenge, you know, of challenges. We also see, you know, in terms of Bungie catering to the more casual player, we see more handout / participation rewards. I mean, just an example off the top of my head is Passage of Persistence, which is the trial passage that allows you to get an adept weapon just for winning 7 games, right? All you have to do is, or is it even winning? Or is it just playing? No, I think you still have to win 7, but you have to win 7 games and you'll get an adept reward. And at one point, adept rewards were the pinnacle of the pinnacle. Like you could only get those if you went to the lighthouse. They were very gate kept, I guess would be a good way of putting that. And I don't necessarily think that gatekeeping is like the best idea. And again, like, you know, when it comes to, you know, the participation rewards, if you do Passages of Persistence, you're only going to get 1 a week. So like this week it is Shayura's Wrath. If you do Passage of Persistence, you're gonna get 1 Shayura's Wrath, compared to somebody who goes flawless, who can get, you know, 40 or 50 different adept Shayura's Wrath. Like, yeah, there's different levels of that, but I think that a lot of people feel Bungie is catering to the casual player because of these handout and participation rewards. You also just have a general lack of exclusive items, you know, things like, for example, adept weapons. Adept weapons, at one point I would say were really, really strong because you could put adept mods on them. You had an adept big one spec, plus they had the stat boosts. Now, not so much. Like adept weapons are pretty much the same as craftable weapons. Like, yes, they are a little bit better, you know, but they're not nearly as good as they once were. And so those exclusive items are just kind of, I guess, dropping off. They haven't been nearly as prevalent as they have been in the past. And especially go back to all the way to, you know, D1 days where everything was strictly RNG. You know, if you had Galahorn back in Destiny 1, you were a god, which granted, I don't want to go back to the days of Destiny 1. Like that was just straight up toxicity. Like you think Destiny's community is toxic now? Try going back 8 years ago and playing Destiny and seeing how toxic the player base was back then. But yeah, that's, you know, that's the lack of challenges, the inclusion of handout and participation rewards, as well as lack of just general exclusive items is definitely hurting. Like it definitely could be seen as hurting the game. I don't think it's hurting the game too much, but I know there is a hardcore subset of players that do not like this. But at the same time, I do believe that hardcore subset of players is still going to play because they are hardcore players. But moving on to the last thing that, you know, the last thing I picked from y'all's responses about what is killing / what has killed Destiny 2 is a general lack of motivating rewards. And this, I mean, I 100% sympathize with this because with the inclusion of crafted weapons, and I love crafted weapons, don't get me wrong, but with the inclusion of crafted weapons, like there's not a whole lot of loot incentive to do certain things, right? Like, yeah, like I can go flawless, for example, this week to get a Shira's Wrath, but it's like I could also just farm out normal Shira's Wraths and they're not going to be performing that much, you know, that much more differently than others. And just generally there's not a lot of rewards in the game. And again, I think this is felt more at the higher echelon of players, like, you know, hardcore players, because I have like everything I could ever want in Destiny 2. So it's going to take something really unique, really special to make me want to, you know, come in here and, you know, say, oh yeah, it's, you know, very motivating rewards. But, you know, as a new player or as somebody who doesn't play nearly as much as I do, I think that the lack of motivating rewards is not as much of a factor. You know, if you're somebody who plays 3 hours a week, as opposed to my like 30 to 40 hours a week, you're definitely going to have more motivating rewards. You know, you're going in and you've played comp since, you know, the start of this episode and stuff like that. And so you've played comp and you're doing all this. Well, then you finally get high enough so you can start getting artifice armor. Like that is definitely a motivating reward. Going in and doing like a master dungeon is a motivating reward if you don't do that very frequently, because, you know, having those stat boosts is really nice. Going in and, you know, doing a raid, just any raid, not even a master raid, just doing any raid is going to feel like a motivating reward, because newer players or players who don't play as much Destiny 2 as some of us hardcore players, they feel like those rewards are good. You know, if you, for example, if you went in and cleared Volta Glass on master mode and you got, you know, a really strong Fate Bringer drop, like that's going to feel like a motivating reward. For me, not really. Why? Because I've done it and I've got it, you know. But yeah, those are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like 8 or 9 things that players, you know, were the most popular answers as to what is killing / what has killed Destiny 2. If you think I missed anything really important, go down in the comments and tell me what I missed, and, you know, give me a detailed reason as to why. I do like to read all y'all's comments. But with that being said, do me a favor, drop a like on the video. It helps the channel out a lot. Subscribe for more daily Destiny content, conversations, debates, discussions, all that good stuff. And do me one more favor, watch the videos you see here on the end screen, because for whatever reason, YouTube thinks you'll like them. Guys, I'll see you next time. Bye for now.